Welcome to rustic, rural, and today soggy Nelles Corners, Ontario. We're at Cayuga for the Players Limited 200 featuring the stars of the American Speed Association. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Larry Nubra along with our answer to Donald Davidson, Rob Albright. Now, it's been raining off and on all morning long. We spent a lot of time trying to dry this racetrack, and the exact start time, scheduled originally for just a few minutes from now, is questionable. Now, Rob, we saw at the top of the show how strong Benson has been. Jay Sauter is currently second in points. What's going on with Hansen and Eddie and Seneker?
Well, you know, it's maybe a little bit of an exaggeration to say that Benson has been dominant because it has been extremely close. These brand new from the ground up race cars yesterday in time trials, the top 18 were within 0.3 of a second of one another. Now, one of the crewmen told me, he said that's 1/4 of a turn on the bleeder valve on the right rear tire.
Well, what about the points? Again, Benson on top, but some new names in the top 10.
Well, absolutely, including a couple of rookies. Now, a lot of people expected Steve Holtzhausen to come in and do well. He's filling a void left by Scott Hansen, who's gone to another team. But Brad Loney, who's ever even heard the name? He's 10th in the points, and he's a comer.
You mentioned Loney. We've got a lot of rookies. 10 of them have officially declared they're going after the lucrative ASA Rookie of the Year title. They're a big part of this year of the season.
Well, they sure are. And I'll tell you, most of these guys come from successful racing backgrounds. We have midget champions. We have ice racers. We have dirt racers. We have former drag racers. They come from everywhere.
And today is the beginning, as the helicopter for the in-car camera lands, is the beginning of the International Championship, the international racing in this year of the Olympics. This is the first race in that.
The Players Limited Cup, I guess the best way to describe it, it's kind of like the NBA finals are to professional basketball. These 5 races in Canada are the 5 richest stock car races in this nation. It's going to be something special.
Well, Ralph Shaheen is joining us again, and he has a free ticket to the place where every other race driver wants to be every week, the front row.
Right now, Larry, this racetrack here on the front row is a little bit dry, but we are experiencing a couple of sprinkles. Scott Hansen will start on the outside of the front row. Scott, how does this racetrack respond to wet weather?
Well, I think what happened with the rain here is it washed a lot of the oil and rubber off, and it's going to be a little bit harder on the right side tires, and, you know, we're just going to have to play it by ear and make that first pit stop and see what the tires look like.
This is the best that you've qualified so far this year. It's been a bit of a struggle at the beginning. How come all of a sudden you're so much stronger?
Well, we went home after Milwaukee, and the car owner, Jerry Gunderman from All-Star Racing, decided that we should build a new car and go with the new Buick engines. You know, Carl Wagner built us a heck of a good motor here, and we just switched cars completely since the first 3 races. We still kept the Oldsmobile body, but we had a Chevrolet engine. We went to the Buick now, and it seems to be working out real well.
Well, Scott Hansen is a new visitor to the front row, but the old story still stays the same. On the pole position here is Johnny Benson Jr.
Yeah, Johnny Benson, not only those 3 poles in a row, but he also qualified 14th in the first race of this year. Well, the light rain has let up a little bit. Officials tell us we are on schedule. This could be very exciting. Stay where you are. The 1992 ACDelco Challenge Series on TNN is brought to you in part by Wynn's Oil Company, makers of Wynn's Hot Shot Fuel products. One shot and you'll feel the difference. And by new Armor All Tire Foam. Just spray and walk away. And by Goodyear, #1 in tires. And by Kawasaki. Let the good times roll. The engines have been fired, and the pastoral scene around Nelles Corners here in southern Ontario has been broken. Hopefully, these high-powered racing engines, Rob, will blow off some of this low-lying fog and some of this moisture.
Well, it is a little bit scary when you look out to the west. It's not one of those situations where the rain has stopped and we've got clear skies in the direction from which the front is moving. Larry, this should be exciting, the first 100 laps of this race. 101 makes a complete race.
101 laps is just a half-mile racetrack. Only 200 laps is really a sprint race. Here's what the track is.
So it's just a bit over 5/8 of a mile, and in fact, it's something of a D shape. The back stretch actually has a slight arc in it. The turns are banked at a rather slight 12 degrees, and the grandstand's pretty doggone close to full here this afternoon.
Great racing tradition here at Nelles Corners at Cayuga. They've been racing ASA cars here since 1979.
It turned out to be a beautiful afternoon yesterday. The threat was for rain yesterday. It still is a bit damp, as you can see.
The Weather Bureau tells us that this rain should hold off. We have our fingers crossed. Here's today's starting grid from Cayuga at Nelles Corners. nearing his third consecutive pole. The points leader, Johnny Benson Jr. from Grand Rapids, Michigan. This is the Port City Berger Chevrolet. On the outside of the front row is Green Bay, Wisconsin, Scott Hansen, the Wisconsin Aviators Oldsmobile.
With his best qualifying effort of the last 2 seasons, car number 25, Tony Raines, starts third in the ETR Racing Mex America Oldsmobile. And right alongside young Tim Steele, car number 85, the HS Dian Engineering Pontiac.
With his finest qualifying effort of 1992, Jeff Neal in the split-fire Pontiac. Jeff is from a racing family, Lakeville, Illinois. And Todd Ford from Bryan, Ohio. This is the Noah Yoder Blanford Inn Ford. An outstanding qualifying run for Todd.
He led this race with just 10 laps to go last year before faltering. Car number 66, Glenn Allen Jr. in the Track Auto Pontiac. And alongside, struggled qualifying yesterday, car number 84, Bob Seneker in the Lane Automotive Thunderbird.
This former pro football player is having his finest ASA season ever. Tom Harrington, Hendersonville, Tennessee, the BFI Recycle Now Oldsmobile. Steve Holzhausen, the highest-ranked rookie from Bangor, Wisconsin, the Baker Enterprises. It's another Oldsmobile.
A 2-time ASA victor and wearing ASA's biggest smile, Gary St.Amant, car number 7, starts 11 in the St.Amant Motorsports Chevrolet. Kent Stoffer goes 12th, car number 90, the Kinetic Engine Flex Technologies Ford.
And where is Mike Eddy? There is Mike Eddy. He starts 13th. He's finished second twice this year, looking for win number 1, the Nationwide Dynomax Pontiac. And Dennis Lampman, car number 9, he starts 14th, the A1 Service Barricade Flasher Ford.
Well, he thought he had a shot at the pole. Didn't materialize for car number 1, Jay Sauter. He'll start 15th in the KC Motorsports Chevrolet. And rounding out the 8th row, the Zero Hero, Tom Jones. He chauffeurs the Felpro Pace Jacks Quartermaster Pontiac.
In 17th and 18th starting positions, Tim Vito out of Michigan and a fellow Detroit driver, Harold Fair, in car number 81. In row number 10, the ice racer that Rob referred to at the top of the show, Leighton Reese. He won the qualifying race yesterday, and Donnie Zwiefel in car number 35. The 11th and 12th rows, Tony Roper, son of a famous late model racer, is on the inside of the 11th row. Dennis Vogel, ASA regular. Then Jim Cooper out of Indiana. Ray Skillman, the racing businessman car dealer from Indianapolis, Indiana. The 13th row from Houston, Texas, Jerry Foyt, Terry Wenning from the midget ranks, Brad Loney, top 10 in points, but 27th fastest qualifier today, Mac McClellan. He's a story for today. He starts in 28th position in the Wins Lumina. In the 15th row, side by side, David Anspaugh and Todd Oliver, cars number 37 and 15. Interesting story there in both of those drivers. More on that a little later. Joe Knott is in car number 48, running out of the St.Amant stable, and Greg Freed will be on the outside of row number 16. Scheduled to go all alone in row number 17. That'll be the 33rd starting position from Monticello, Indiana, John Freeman.
We had hoped that one other driver would be taking the starting flag today, and unfortunately he's not. A doctor from West Virginia who drives a Racing for Kids Pontiac, unfortunately, is not going to be racing here today.
We're looking at the main man so far in 1992, John Benson Jr. But I'm sure all of you can see and all of you can read. I'll tell you what, all of the ASA competitors have seen all they want to of that guy and that car so far this season.
Well, you know, when we've asked about, right there in that row, you can see Tom Harrington and Steve Holzhausen. Harrington having his finest ASA season ever. He has competed in 100 ASA events, only 13 top finishes in his career, but he's run old equipment, a brand new race car, and newfound confidence for the former professional football player in car number 91.
Carrying the second of the 2 onboard cameras, Tom Harrington, ranked 5th right now in points.
You can see the sprinkles, Larry. Look on the windshield of that car, and we're set to go green. It might be a treacherous start.
It could be a treacherous start. The sprinkles appear to be very light. The drivers are not exactly certain how at racing speeds slippery this track might be. Let's see how carefully they handle this start. John Benson Jr., the posture he's been in most of the day, brings the field around, wave a green flag, and the Players Limited 200 is underway. Benson takes no time in asserting himself at the front, and looking to the inside is Tony Raines in that petty blue or Robin's Egg blue number 25.
Tony Raines, like Johnny Benson, was expected to win the championship and several victories this season. He's off to a very slow start, but his best qualifying effort in the last 2 seasons has placed him at the front, and he wants to show that he belongs there.
That is Scott Hansen in the white blue trim number 53. Similarly painted cars up front. Again, It's John Benson Jr. in the wake of 2 wins in a row. Scott Hansen running second, and Tony Raines, there's only one of those. He's now from Bigler, Pennsylvania. He runs in third.
You can see Johnny Benson's car pushed up the racetrack just a bit in turn number 2, but Hansen says, nah, it's a little bit too early to try anything risky. Scott's team has built 3 brand new race cars since the month of March.
A remarkable job by everybody, including these guys in the middle of the pack. In the familiar black, yellow, I know you can't see it, but there's some green trim on that. Number 88, that's Mike Eddy. Mike Eddy began this race in 13th position and is the driver in the middle of the field, beginning to methodically move to the front.
Coming right with him, the other black car, black and red, that's Jay Sauter. He started well back as well. And look at Scott Hansen pressuring Johnny Benson for the point.
Johnny Benson Jr., who has been not only the biggest winner, but the dominant car. He has not been challenged all that often. You wonder, has Scott Hansen found something in the setup? As a matter of fact, Benson and Hansen have not pulled away from the rest of the field, or is Benson just cooling it a little because he's been so strong?
Well, you know, the final practice session yesterday, the sun was out and the track surface was hot. I'm sure some of these crews guessed on pre-race setups today. It looks like Hansen may have guessed just a little bit better than Benson's team.
We're looking at Leighton Reese, and we understand from our spotters that Leighton Reese in the Leighton's Garage Courtney Motors car is slowing down. Leighton came in today with a great deal of confidence. He won the qualifying race yesterday, and he said, I probably learned more in that 15-minute contest than I had all season up to this point.
Well, he's not getting a good start here this afternoon, and we again go back to the front of the pack with Johnny Benson, his biggest cushion of the early laps, about 3/4 of a car length.
If you can call that a cushion. It's Benson, Hansen, Raines is still third, Tim Steele fourth. Todd Forbes turning in a great race is fifth right now. Jeff Neal is sixth. Glenn Allen Jr. is seventh. Bob Zinneker is eighth. Tom Harrington is ninth, and in 10th is the black and gold number 88.
We understand he's now moved into the 10th position. Right behind him comes Jay Sauter. Jay hasn't gotten qualifying quite figured out. He's second in the point standings, always races to the front, but makes the job a little more difficult on himself by qualifying back in the pack. And already the leaders beginning to move into lap traffic.
Going to the high side of Greg Freed and that dark number 83. There is Joe Knott, the Knott Motors car out of the St.Amant stables. Joe Knott from the Lima, Ohio area as he goes one lap down here in the early stages. A 19-year-old rookie, and believe me, keep that name in the file of your brain, because he may be being lapped in the early stages of a race here in 1992, but come the year 2002, he could be up front.
Absolutely. It's incredible that these leaders are already moving into lap traffic, Larry, considering the fact that the top 25 qualifiers were separated by only half a second. So once the green flag flies, I think some extra adrenaline gets going, especially when you're being hounded like Benson is by Hansen.
It was a remarkable qualifying session. The times were very close, and just the subtlest of adjustments on these cars meant the difference between first and 15th.
When I talked to these guys in practice yesterday, it was incredible how many of them said, we've got a pole this weekend, with a big smile on their face, and they all believed it.
Well, the first approximately 20 cars are running in one of those freight trains, rocketing around this 5/8 mile oval, but so far no one has been able to challenge the supremacy of Benson in 21, Hansen in number 53.
Since Scott Hansen was the 1989 ASA Rookie of the Year and became the first ASA Rookie in history to win an event, he's won several races, but he's not led a lap this season.
Well, we can go down to the John Benson pit area right now and get an update on track conditions. Ralph?
It's the crew chief for Johnny Benson. Chris, what's he saying on the radio? How is the track?
He says the track's a little damp, so it's just a little slippery out there. We got a slight push. He's fighting for the lead right now with Scott. Hopefully we can keep the Port City Racing, Valvoline Oil, Bridger Chevrolet, Lumina in front.
Is this the same setup that you qualified with, or were you guessing a little bit this morning with the rain conditions?
We're pretty much the same as we were when we qualified. We didn't make any radical changes or anything like that.
For right now, Johnny Benson Jr. is going to take it cautious.
Boy, I'll tell you, it's just incredible to me, Rob, as many top contenders as there are running now in this new revised American Speed Association Stock Car Series, that Benson is able to dominate. And we have a car silent in corner number 2. That is Jim Cooper. in the UB Machine Special. Jim Cooper and crew, they have been struggling all weekend long. I think he just barely saved his lap as we did not see the leaders streak by. Jim ran the qualifiers race, and here's a man that I got to admit, before the year began, this was my pick to be Rookie of the Year, and I don't think that they have had quite the success they anticipated.
Well, Jim Cooper became a legend on the high-banked half miles in the unlimited, what they call the unlimited late model cars, and everybody expected great things of him in ASA this season.
It's a solid team with some veteran American Speed Association people behind it. And I do believe he'll be moving close to the front. Brief pause here, fortunately, not because of weather. Car. The winters can be harsh in this land at the southwest corner of Lake Ontario, but there is something peaceful about this country. You feel it when you come across the border, and here in the Nelles Corners, Cayuga, Canada area, they really love their racing. Here's the end of the Jim Cooper spin.
We have been impressed with the caution and restraint that all of the drivers have shown with this damp racetrack. Look at Jerry Foyt in the blue and yellow machine taking evasive action around Jim Cooper's car number 95.
Ready to go back to green flag racing. It flutters and away the... Oh, and Benson is in trouble. Johnny Benson does not save it. Gets into the outside wall. The leader has crashed here at Cayuga. Oh, what an alarming set of circumstances. It happened so suddenly, I did not have an opportunity to see if he was helped or if he simply lost control. There is the shot from inside the Benson car. He looks a little stunned. Maybe it's just unhappiness, Rob.
Well, I think it's a combination of certainly unhappiness, and he took a hard shot against that retaining wall. It had to have knocked the breath out of this points leader, the guy who had appeared to be invincible in the early part of the season. Now, there's the crew chief. That's Chris Bradley. And I don't think it's so much maybe anger as it is concern for his driver. He stays in the pit area, and he's in radio communication with Johnny.
What a graphic shot that was. That was terrific, seeing the crew chief talking to his driver on the racetrack. You see John is pretty calm as he sits there trying to refire the car, but just a sudden shocking turn of events here as John Benson, who has just dominated this series for the past month, suddenly finds himself in the marbles on the outside of the track. Once he got up there, he couldn't save it.
Well, it'll be interesting, hopefully, to get another view of that. It's almost reminiscent of Memorial Day and watching some open-wheeled race cars down in central Indiana on restarts. Let's see if there's contact.
Here it is. Yeah, let's see. There's Benson, maybe a quarter of a lane up. No, he tucks it back down.
Oh, yes, you could see the tail end of the car get airborne. I think Benson was trying to tiptoe into the corner, and Hansen just got into the back of him. Certainly not a... Now watch. I think if we can see this again, we're going to see it's a little bit late, but I saw the tail end of that car just get a little bit up in the air before he got out of control, and I think he was just nudged from behind. And when it's slick, just a little bit out of the racing group, that's all it takes.
Yeah, the track still doesn't have the tackiness to it that a paved surface has in a hot summer day. And a combination of the little bit of moisture that's on it, particularly out of the groove, and getting up into the dirt and the debris on the outside of the racing lane, you got a problem, Ralph?
Well, we got Chris Bradley with him as crew chief. Chris, what did he say took place?
Just says Scott got in the back of him there on the restart.
Well, the car's coming by us now. Does he make it sound like possibly it's fixable?
It's going to be tough. The best we can do is just get it out there and hopefully get a few points.
Chris Bradley, a frustrated Chris Bradley, the crew chief for Johnny Benson.
Well, Ralph, while you were interviewing Chris down there, under yellow, Jim Cooper went out. You see a wrecker right there in corner number 2, and there's a car in the infield. Jim Cooper spun out trying to catch back up to the tail of the field, so that's Cooper's second spin.
And car number 53, Scott Hansen, came on pit road, and the hood went up. So I think there very well could have been some very incidental and unintentional contact between Benson and Hansen.
Well, meanwhile, Johnny Benson Jr., we're just trying to keep you up. Let's take another look at this restart, Rob.
Well, here we go. I think this is just prior to the restart, if I'm not mistaken. Down the back straightaway and into turn number 3. At this juncture, Hansen giving him plenty of room. Now he closes.
Getting ready, anticipation of the green flag, corner number 3.
Remember, it is the leader's responsibility to determine the pace of the restart. He did nudge him just a little bit. Close. Again. Now let's see what happens.
The daylight appeared to disappear, but we did not have the correct angle. The most important point, of course, is going down into corner number 1.
And as Scott Hansen's car number 53 came by the start-finish line that time, it did appear that there was a little bit of red paint on the front end. Look at them taping it up. Yeah, there's been contact. No doubt about it.
Well, Ralph, I understand you may have another observation or perhaps an eyewitness account or somebody's opinion as to what happened down there.
Well, the opinion is of Howie Letow, the crew chief for Scott Hansen. He had an opportunity to talk to Scott on the radio, and he said to Scott, what happened? And Scott said he pushed the brake pedal all the way to the floor, and there were no brakes to stop the number 53, and that's why he went right into the back of Johnny Benson.
Well, an explanation as to what happened, but Rob, you were right. I mean, it wasn't that much of a collision, but at these speeds, the subtlest of taps will send you out of control. Well, we are under yellow flag at Cayuga. We are watching the Players Limited 200. We'll be back with more after this, where the race leader and seasoned dominant driver has been knocked out. My goodness, your timing at home is good. You return from the kitchen and the green flag flies, and Tony Raines, who has been anticipating at win number 1 in ASA competition for about a season and a half right now, finds it within his grasp.
He's got my pick for the win today in tow. That's Tim Steele in car number 85. And now these two will pick up right where Benson and Hansen left us prior to the yellow flag.
All right, seeing as how you took a stand, I just got to feel like the numbers are falling in Eddie's favor. See how it goes.
Why did I think you were going to say that? Well, he's still mired back in 8th position, and I'm surprised that he hasn't made more of an effort than he has. Maybe he thinks attrition will take its toll before he really has to work on it. And look at Steele going after Raines. Just the colors of the numbers are different. The behavior's exactly the way it was for Hansen and Benson.
Yeah, you're right. You're exactly right. Now, 29 laps down is particularly important about that point. Keeping you up to date, those of you who are ASA regulars, it is Raines. Steele is second. Running in third now is Todd Forbes. So I'll break that run to talk to you about Tom Jones, the Zero Hero, as a slowed down.
Tom was one of the drivers who did some experimental things with this brand new 1992 race car. He did some unusual things to the front suspension, but it looks like maybe engine problems for today. And you mentioned the car in third place, just out of your frame. There come the two leaders. You can see him there, the Black Machine 07. That is the Ford Thunderbird of Todd Forbes. I thought he captured the pole yesterday. He came close, but he's now beginning to put some heat on Tim Steele. And he was, surprisingly, the fastest Ford Thunderbird qualifier. Not, as you might have expected, Bobson.
Jeff Neal is in 4th position, just outside of your picture. 5th is Bob Seneker. 6th is Tom Harrington. 7th is now Mike Eddy. There he is coming into your screen. There's 8th, 9th, and 10th. Jay Sauter, Glenn Allen Jr., and Steve Holtzhausen.
Glenn Allen on the outside, you can see he's caught on the outside of the racetrack. No room to get back down. There's no place to be with a wet racing surface. Now he'll try to squeeze in, I would imagine, behind Steve Holtzhausen, but no, says Kent Stauffer, I want that bottom line. And something may be amiss in that car that's very uncharacteristic of Glenn Allen Jr. to be going backwards early in the race.
The Track Auto 66, they spend a significant amount of time working on the motor. They felt they were down on horses last televised show that we saw at Milwaukee. And they worked a lot on the engine this week, and maybe they missed the setup just a tad.
Talked to Jay Sauter this morning, and he is doing exactly what he told me he would do. He said, yeah, I'm disappointed that we didn't qualify better. He said, I'm going to get right behind Mike and just let him open the holes for me, kind of like a guard would do for a running back, and that's exactly what's going on.
All right, Rob, top of the show, we said 200 laps, almost a sprint race. What do you think? 1 stop, 2 stop, and when's the first one?
Well, I think, really, if we can run this thing the distance today, which we all anticipate, it's probably going to be a 2-stop race. Remember, under caution at Cayuga, the drivers are only permitted to change 2 tires, Larry. So if the cautions fall appropriately, you'll see every driver making, I believe, at least 2 stops, 2 for right side tires, 2 for the left.
7th place, Mike Eddy. 8th place, Jay Sauter. Eddy's had a second, and a 24th. He lost a cylinder at Milwaukee, but he's the only driver in this league who has led every race this season. That's
Continue to watch that best battle on the racetrack now. I say best, well, maybe second best, as again Raines and Steele give us something to watch.
Boy, this has got to be exciting for these 2 drivers. 2 of the younger drivers on the ASA trail, and running up front, the yellow comes out, and we have a massive pileup. Where are we at? Over in corner number 3, between 3 and 4.
Unfortunately, Glenn Allen Jr., the sandwich, he's the meat between the 2 pieces of bread. Tim Steele, or Tim Fedewa, rather, the bright yellow car number 55, and rookie driver John Freeman in car number 16. Now, also, you can see just to the right, Mac McClellan has spun, but it does not appear as if he's had any contact.
Now, McClellan in the wins car, an interesting story. We kind of teased that during the opening of this show. McClellan raced in another event last night in the Carolinas, last evening, took a private plane to Dayton, Ohio, arrived at 3 a.m., drove 8 hours to get up to Cayuga to run this race today. So he's had a very long day at night. You can see a left rear tire is flat. Now standing down in the pits with Glenn Allen Sr. is Ralph.
Well, he is the crew chief for his son, and did he tell you what took place out there?
No, I haven't talked to him since the crash. He just said before the car was pushing real bad. I don't know if a tire was going down or what, but he just said the car was pushing real bad, and I didn't see what happened over there.
Well, they'll take the car back behind the wall and see if they can get it fixed, Joe.
Glenn had managed to stay inside the top 10, but it was very obvious that it was a struggle. He was fighting a very reluctant horse. Here's the end of it.
Well, you know what happened. It looks to me like perhaps John Freeman may have spun in front of Glenn Allen Jr. and the 55 machine of Tim Fedewa. Again, that's purely conjecture. For both of those two young drivers, Fedewa, who was last year's Rookie of the Year, and Glenn Allen, who came within 10 laps of winning this event here 1 year ago before running out of fuel, it has been a disastrous start to 1992. Folks thought he was going to win 3 or 4 events this year. Started 5th, 2nd, and 6th in the 3 previous races, but he's finished 25th and 4th, and Scott Hansen continues to be plagued with early race problems in car number 53. Perhaps brake problems, that's what the indication might have been. Maybe Ralph can find out for us.
Too many visits to the pits for Scott Hansen to be a real factor in the win in today's race. We were talking about Allen. You can see Glenn there in the red and white uniform himself. This 21-year-old is out peering inside the car trying to determine whether or not they can affect repairs and continue in this race. He did win twice last year. He was one of the young drivers, one of the new freight bases who broke into the stranglehold that veterans like Seneca and Eddy have had for years on Victory Lane.
He won the toughest race on the ASA schedule late in the season, the Winchester 400. And I don't like, well, Tim Fedewa is out now. They're talking about what might have transpired. And, well, we wondered what might be wrong with Scott Hansen's car number 53. Ralph, can you tell us?
Well, I can't, but maybe Howie Letow can as crew chief. Howie, what's the story with the number 53?
Well, we had a problem there on that restart. Scott went to hit the brakes coming in the corner, and the pedal went to the floor. I don't know exactly what the problem was. It certainly wasn't intentional. And we went back under green, and he had a shake in the right front, so we come in and we changed right side tires. I think we had a wheel a little bit loose on it.
Is this track conditions getting to be real dangerous out there from what he is saying to you?
Well, I know right now with everybody pretty well running single file, if you try going on the outside, you're in trouble.
Howie Letow, crew chief for Scott Hansen.
All right, thanks, Ralph. A year ago, Scott Hansen won 4 times. That was tied for second in the most wins in ASA in 1991. Bob Seneca also won 4, and Mike Eddy won 7 times. That was 1991. This is 92. As you look at the fan cam and what's going on just outside of the main straightaway and underneath the grandstands while this yellow flag continues, this is the view of what you'd see, I guess, if you're at the racetrack. And incidentally, just before I went to break, I mentioned that Raines never won an ASA main event. That's true. And Tim Steele's never won a main event at Cayuga because he does have 2 career wins. Also, we picked up a very interesting radio transmission during this yellow flag round.
Yeah, Tony Raines, we were trying to get him so that you fans at home could hear what he had to say. We just kind of eavesdropped on his conversation.
Like
Here he is, listen.
Wipers are working. That's a fact.
The crew just says to Tony, I don't think your wipers are working. He says, that's a fact.
Well, I just heard him say just before we came back on the air, he says, yeah, I heard the crew saying that, that Tim's going to tiptoe to...
Put on there.
Did you see that puff of smoke out of the back end of car number 25?
I did not. No.
There it was. I wonder if that means anything.
Now, we might comment, we don't mean to make light of the situation. You know, we are reasonably long ways away from home for many of these drivers, and this is a 2...
All righty, Mr. Blackman, the next time they come around, not this time, next time, but show them 2 big flags.
2 laps to green flag. This is a 200 lap race. So officially, if we can record 101 laps, that is less than 50 laps away, about 45 laps, as a matter of fact, this will be an official race. So that really is going to play a factor in the pit stop strategy.
Well, again, we're going to go back to green with an unknown commodity in the asphalt racing surface. And again, I think you're going to see these drivers using some discretion on the restart. We have to, again, maybe in some ways think that Scott Hansen did have a brake problem, or that because the tires were cold, the track was wet, he just couldn't get it to stop.
All right, 2 laps to green. One of the other victims of that incident in corner number 3 is now with Ralph.
Well, that victim is driver car number 66, Glenn Allen Jr. And your car doesn't look too bad. It looks like it can be fixed.
Yeah, it's a lot of it's cosmetic, but we got a lot of damage done. We're working right. The track auto Pontiac is running well. We're working real hard trying to get it back into the race. Just a victim of circumstances. Slower car in front of me spun. I got on the binders. Car behind me got into me, and that's the way it went.
We're hearing people talking about braking problems. Is that the track surface or a problem with the braking systems?
I actually don't know. I didn't have a problem. Tim Fido, the guy that hit me, he said he had a brake problem, which he got on the brakes and didn't have any and got in the back of me. But I haven't had a brake problem. I don't know why.
Glenn Allen Jr., who is still looking for that first really ray of good fortune in 1992. It'll come, Glenn. Hang in there. Looking for green flag this time around. Raines brings the field around. Both crews said these drivers are tiptoeing. They don't look like they're tiptoeing to me, but Tim Steele glides right up behind Raines. Third is Todd Forbes. Fourth is Jeff Neal, and fifth is, Bob Sineker.
I was watching very carefully Todd Forbes' car number 07 on the restart. We had overheard his crew say, or him say to his crew, that the car was locked in 4th gear, but he got a good restart. So apparently he got the gear shifting situation resolved sometime during that caution period without coming on pit road.
I had a conversation with several drivers yesterday about what this track drives like, if any, that is a well-known commodity in terms of tracks on the ASA circuit. They told me it's like a big Columbus.
More smoke from the tail end of car number 25, Tony Raines. If it was an engine, I have to believe that the indicator would be to Tony that he was losing oil pressure. Now look, you can see it there again. I think it may be the power steering pump going away, and I'm sure that's what his crew has got their fingers crossed for and are praying for.
Big, young, strapping man like that, he should be able to handle it, I would suspect.
Well, the same fate befell Johnny Benson at Milwaukee, and it didn't keep him from winning the race.
The opportunity to win a race is a great incentive, isn't it?
Absolutely. And you can see now, once again, they move in behind the lapped car number 83 of Greg Free. Tony named ASA's most improved driver in 1991. That as a result of the new affiliation with car owner Ernie Roselli in the Specs America ETR Oldsmobile team.
All right, again, keeping up with you, those of you who have favorites in 6th position, these are all unofficial right now. Tom Harrington, 7th is Mike Eddy, 8th is Jay Sauter, 9th is Steve Holthausen, and 10th is Kent Stauffer. Now, Ralph, can you give us any insight as to what maybe the smoke is coming from Tony Raines' car?
Ernie Roselli is with me, the car owner for Tony Raines. We're seeing smoke, Tony. What's the story with car 25?
It's just smoke in the right rear tire a bit. Nothing to worry about.
These raindrops are coming down pretty good. How is the car handling for him?
It's real wet out there. He's just trying to hang on to it, running about 80%.
Boy, really, really tough call, because with live TV, we're, away from home, you want to get the race done, you want to do this safely, but on the other hand, there's a big obligation to get this race completed, and I can guarantee you, we can look over here to our right and look at all the ASA officials, and they're watching the situation very carefully. A lot of conversation, Rob. There's really a lot of thought going on. Yellow flag is coming out. It has been determined that it is just too wet to continue, and I'm sure that this is a weather situation.
You can see exactly what's confronting the race drivers. Now we're getting the viewpoint of Tom Harrington. That's what it looks like through the windshield of that race car. You can see the streaks going up to the top. The drops are hitting the windshield, and then at speed, it's pretty well blowing off, but still, when a driver sees that, knowing that he does not have treaded tires on that car, that's got to be frightening. Oh, look at this from the roof cam.
From the roof cam on top of Tom Harrington's car. Now, Rob, strategy here. We're 67 laps into the race. Well, we can run 33 at this pace and probably not run out of fuel, but would the officials allow this thing to go 33? What do you think is going to happen?
No, I can just tell you right now. One of the rules of ASA is that the last 5 laps of any race must be run under green. I mean, these ASA folks hate to see a race determined under caution. It won't happen today, I can assure you. They'll stop it before they'll let it get to the halfway point.
I think it's pretty obvious what you should do if you are Tim Steele running second or Todd Forbes running third. whatever Raines does, you do. But what do you do if you're Tony Raines? Do you pit or do you stay out?
No, you stay out. I don't think he has any option. And I want to argue just a little bit with
Sure.
Ernie Roselli. Ernie Roselli said it's just right rear tire smoke.
Look pretty
They're
good.
running about 35 miles an hour right now, and I saw some smoke coming out of the back of car number 25.
Yeah, but it's a good corporate line.
Yeah, it sure is. And again, what he doesn't want to do is maybe be the cause of him getting a black consultation flag.
Of course, yeah. And with the track being as wet as it is already, I don't know that a little more moisture makes a difference anyway, if indeed there is any moisture.
Well, and once again, we're being told that the rain has subsided and maybe in another this is weird.
Yeah, we have gone through this, however, all morning, beginning with the moment that we left the hotel in nearby Hamilton, Ontario. We've been into and out of rain, and the cloud cover has never lifted. It's been smoky gray all day long. The rain comes in, the rain leaves. About 10 o'clock this morning, it was pretty much a downpour. We had only one downpour. The rest of the day, it's just been teases.
Well, and the Weather Service said the worst of it would be over by 10:30. We can see a couple of cars who have elected to come on pit road. If your lap's down there, you've got nothing to lose. Cooper has absolutely nothing to lose right there.
Put new tires on to make sure that he has as much grip as he possibly can. We saw the Wind Lumina of Mac McClellan also pitting in. Again, Mac, I guess, again, adrenaline makes you forget how you feel, but he really had to fight a little bit of fatigue, I know, this morning in the pits because he flew all night and drove 8 hours between the hours of 3 a.m. and 11 a.m. to get here, and that's dedication.
Well, a lot of these guys have had that kind of racing schedule in the past. You just learn to forget what you feel like. And once you get absolutely in the cockpit of that race car, it's forgotten until, an hour after you climb out.
Incidentally, in a brand new, unproven car, McClellan finished 16th last night against some fairly decent competition. So, the weekend, from that standpoint, he's able to make both the races. I guess you got to call that a success.
For those of you fans who followed ASA over the years, we'd like to welcome back somebody that we've mentioned, and that is Dan McGuire. He's ASA's vice president. He has spent some time in the hospital, and he's back at the track this week, and we'd like to say welcome back, Dan McGuire. And a big hello to Dave Jackson, who was seriously injured in a late season crash last year at Winchester. We'd hoped he'd been here to race. He's probably watching at home. Hi, Dave. Get back, would you?
And to continue on that theme, we hear that Doug Wolfgang is improving. Our thoughts go to Jay Sauter's mom and also to my grandmother Berger in Columbus, Ohio, who I understand is feeling under the weather. She deserves to have a pause now and then. She's been around since about the turn of this century, so my best to her. Here is a look at all the cars that are running on the track. We call it our TV picture postcard. There's Jerry Foyt going by, the Clark Oil number 2 of Terry Wendy. The number 95 of Jim Cooper passes by. Here comes the front of the field. Tony Raines has led this race now for about the last 35 laps. Time to look for your favorite.
There's Tim Steele, car number 07, Todd Forbes, the 5 of Jeff Neal, Bob Seneker. There's Tom Harrington, Mike Eddy, and Jay Sauter. Those guys have been interesting. They've been right together since the outset. There's 9, Dennis Lampman, the 81 of Harold Fair, Donnie Zwiefel at 35. Gary St.Amant, we haven't said much about him, still in the hunt. Scott Hansen, you just saw car number 53 go by. He's worked his way back up to mid-pack. The Brad Loney machine went by, and now right back where we were just a moment ago. There's the 10 of Tony Roper. He's had some problems early in the race. In fact, he's had problems all season.
Well, Ralph has been on the story that we have been asking about, the smoke from Tony Raines' car. Ralph, update?
Well, I went back and I talked to Ernie Roselli again, the crew chief for Tony Raines, and I asked him if he was sure about the smoke, and he said they have done some valve work on the number 25 coming into this weekend, and he said it still is going to trickle a little bit of smoke out of there when he mashes on the gas, but he's really not worried about it being anything terminal to the engine. So a combination of tire smoke and a little smoke out of the engine bay that he's not too worried about could be what we're seeing out of Tony Raines' car.
Ralph, I bet other than the weather, you're the second most unwelcome person in his pit right now.
You're probably right.
When we look back at Tony Raines' finishing record in 1991, it's incredible. He ended the season 6th in the point standings, but of the last 15 events, he was only out of the top 10 twice. This year, he has yet to crack the top 10. And again, involved in an accident in the first race of the season at Nashville. Finished 16th at Columbus, was never a factor. At Milwaukee, had a camshaft break. It's been a tough season for Tony Raines. He'd love to see us run this to conclusion.
Well, there is the sight on top of the starter stand. There is the sight from on top of Tom Harrington's car. And Ralph, it looks like from the view of the camera perched on top Harrington's car, the rain is reasonably heavy. What's it like down there? Is it cold? Is it very wet? How about the pavement you're standing?
Well, it's a little bit of both, Larry. It's very unusual. It's when the breeze blows, it gets cool. But when the breeze stops, the humidity picks up and it just gets warm and humid. So right now we're feeling a bit of a breeze, and that's blowing what little bit of rain is falling down around, which makes it more uncomfortable and more obnoxious to the drivers and the people down here, believe me.
Yeah.
Outside of that, it goes in spurts. It'll rain for a few minutes, then it'll dry up, and it'll look like we're going to go right back to green, and then it'll start to trickle down a little again. The breeze will come back, and it gets real ugly once again. Right now, at this very moment, it's starting to lighten up a little bit. So possibly, as you've seen out on the racetrack, the ASA officials have the cars circulating at a little bit of a quicker pace to try and build up that heat as fast as they can. Hopefully, if it will hold for a minute, we can get this thing dried out enough to go. I am amazed at the driver's skills that we're being able to see here today. You know, when you think about people racing in the rain, usually you think about road racers, not stock car drivers on an oval. I think these gentlemen are doing a masterful job behind the wheel here today at these speeds.
All right, Ralph. Remember, this is a paved racetrack. We're running on slicks, and there is very little traction, and you certainly can't rely on treads to give you a grip to the racetrack. Well, stay with us. We don't know what the next few minutes will bring, but we're going to give you a rundown in the entire field when we come back. The one-lap signal is coming up, and boy, a big sigh of relief from competitors and fans alike. We are getting ready to go back to speed. And as it is said, now we will see what we will see. I got a feeling this track is still not perfect. And we're going to see some tiptoeing, I believe, at high speed.
I don't know. I'll tell you, no holds barred as far as I'm concerned. 15 laps here would constitute a complete race, and the skies are still threatening, Larry. I think caution goes to the wind on the restart.
Rob, you make an excellent point. This could be a 15-lap trophy dash, and after that happens, things will calm down a little bit. Let's see what happens. The green flag flutters as we begin officially. Lap number 85, Tim Steele roars down the main straightaway, darts down into corner number 2, Todd Forbes in car number 07. The highest ranked Ford right now struggles to keep up. Running in third position is Jeff Neal, his best ranking so far of 1992.
Out of turn number 4 and down past the start-finish line. We kind of held our breath stop on the restart. Slippery conditions. Well back in the pack, Mike Eddy is charging to the front. So is car number 53, Scott Hansen. But out in front, it continues to be Tim Steele, Todd Forbes, Jeff Neal third. Fourth is Tom Harrington, having a little bit of difficulty keeping up. And now there is Forbes to challenge the lead.
Todd Forbes looks very strong. And by the way, do not attempt to adjust your television set. That seemingly encroaching darkness and haze, that is the way it is right here. Those are the conditions. There is Todd Forbes challenging for the number 1 position. As you suggested, Rob, he may be very aware of lap number 101.
In practice yesterday, Todd Forbes, each session seemed to be as quicker than anybody else on the racetrack. I watched him repeatedly close in on both Johnny Benson and Mike Eddy, and now he's showing his strength this afternoon. There's Eddy on the bottom side of the racetrack, picks up a spot, goes around rookie Jerry Foyt. Trying to come right behind him is veteran Dennis Lampman in car number 9. Look how easily Eddy gets by and how much more difficult task it is for Lampman. Eddy has already picked up 3 or 4 positions just since going back to green.
Eddy made a pit stop during the red flag, or just before the red flag for the rain, and that's why he lost all that positioning on the racetrack. But Mike Eddy is trying to move to the front. He does appear to have, once again, one of the faster cars. He moves to the inside of Todd Oliver, the K&K Insurance employed rookie. Todd Oliver moves over. He says, well, the Eddy freight train is coming through. Ain't no way I'm going to stop it.
Well, perhaps you saw going off turn number 2 that time. I think Mike just kind of nudged him a little bit and said, hey, kiddo, get out of the way. I'm coming through. Now he closes on Dennis Vogel, a veteran driver. Vogel may not move over quite so easily as did Oliver. And Mike drives deep into turn number 3. He'll pick up that position, and still a long way to go to the front of the field. ASA's only 6-time national champion, working his way toward the front in the Nationwide Pontiac. Now he's closing in on the top 10, right behind Donnie Zwiefel's car number 35. And there's the battle for the lead.
The man that ASA made, and that is Mike Eddy. He was nothing more than a local driver until he found a home here in ASA. Up front, Tim Steele continues to hold on. We are at lap number 92, so 8 laps away from the halfway challenge. 8 laps away from that, and 9 laps away from this being an official race. And remember, the winner of the Wins Halfway Challenge will also pick up an extra $500. Money that is significant to these drivers, particularly when they've come such a ways to race.
It's difficult to get a real perception of speed when you're watching on a stationary TV screen at home, but these cars are flying here at Cayuga Speedway. A little over 6/10 of a mile around. That means each straightaway just a touch longer than a football field, yet they're achieving speeds, some say on the radar guns, in excess of 125 to 130 miles an hour right at the end of the straightaway.
With just 6 laps to go to the halfway point, we do notice that the cars don't seem to be sticking to the bottom of the racetrack as much as the drivers would like to. Now, Ralph, you have an observation about why these cars may be pushing.
Most of the field is pushing right now, Larry, as you mentioned, and the reason for it is that as we have a yellow flag.
We have a crash, Ralph, on the back straightaway. Donnie Zweifel and Dennis Lampman have come together at the midpoint of the backstretch. There was definitely contact, damage to both cars. Lampman, most significantly, to the left front.
And Bob Seneca, Tony Raines were dangerously close to being caught up in that incident. Of course, both of those drivers had been in just before resuming green flag racing conditions. That's the car number 35 of Donnie Zweifel.
Now, these yellow flag laps will count, and no, the Wins Halfway Challenge will not be won under yellow. It's the driver who leads the 3rd lap after we go green who is the winner of the Wins Halfway Challenge. Rob, here's what it looked like a little earlier. Well, it's already happened. Donnie is sideways right in the middle of back straightaway. And where's Dennis at? Oh, he was right behind him.
Well, 2 Dennises right there.
Yeah.
Vogel went to the high side, and Lampman, unfortunately, with no place to go, tears both right and left front corners off the body of car number 9.
Vogel in the yellow and blue number 51 got on the binders. Yeah.
Ooh. Here comes Seneca. He squeezes by on the high side.
And there goes Tony Roper by. And Anspaugh and Wendy. There is Dennis Lampman trying to stay on the lead lap. Now he'll make an effort here to duck into the pits. That's why he's passing cars on the inside. He's going to the pitting lane. There's Zweifel. He'll also be coming in, and they're all trying to stay on the lead lap. Now, Bob Seneca is also back in the pits, Ralph.
Well, he is, Larry. Just took on some tires and topped off fuel, as is Tony Raines. Tony Raines now taking on left sides. You might remember he took right sides on before, so he will return to the action as well.
Well, once we've gone to green, things are happening very rapidly. There's Tony Raines. Tony also makes a pit stop, as Ralph pointed out. He's back onto the track. He has maintained his lead lap status. 98 laps officially are completed, but we will not award the Wins Halfway Challenge until 3 green flag laps. Years ago, one of the places that motor racing established a foothold in this area was the Canadian National Exhibition. That was a baseball stadium. They set up a little quarter-mile racetrack and ran super modifieds, and legendary names like Ted Hogan and Harvey Lennox participated there. And a lot of those drivers from time to time would venture over to Ohio, Michigan, Pennsylvania, New York State, and Indiana. Now, late models are supreme as far as the short track oval racing goes here in Canada. And of course, now they are hosting one of the national circuits that travels across North America.
I wish I was old enough to remember that.
Yeah, very, very
back to green.
I just read about it.
Tim Steele picks up right where he left off out in front, with Todd Forbes, Jeff Neal right behind him. The field stringing through turn number 1 out of 2 and down the back straightaway. And look at Steele open up a slight advantage, probably as large a lead as we've seen all day.
Tim Steele, Todd Forbes, Jeff Neal, and a new 4th place car right there at the top of your screen is Jay Sauter. Jay Sauter worked his way underneath Tom Harrington, and Jay Sauter is now looking like he is ready to sort of express himself.
Remember early, Jay Sauter started this race directly behind Mike Eddy. Eddy started 12th, Sauter started 14th, and now we're looking at Mike Eddy working his way back up through the field.
8th position, 8th and 9th, Mike Eddy and the number 53 of Scott Hansen. Well, we are at the 104 lap point right now. This is the Kawasaki mid-race recap. The leader at the time was Tim Steele. We had 3 lead changes among 4 drivers and a total of 5 cautions for 58 laps. The most significant one of which was, of course, the holding up of this race for rain. Now, Tim Steele has also picked up the Wins Halfway Challenge. So both the Kawasaki mid-race report and the Wins Halfway Challenge dominated by the white yellow-trimmed number 85, the man from Florida, Tim Steele, and that Pontiac Grand Prix.
He is not pulling away at all from the former midget driver from Ohio, Todd Forbes, a very quiet, soft-spoken young man. In fact, both of them running up in front. It's hard to get them to say anything, although they're learning to talk for television a little bit better. But Forbes is really hanging tough, and Jeff Neal definitely not out of the hunt. And now we've got black cars running second, third, fourth, and another one stalking back in the 7th position.
Yeah, ascending, maybe another word. Yeah. But certainly Mike Eddy and Scott Hansen are on their way up, but it remains to be seen how strong they'll be in the last 90 laps of this race.
And we've got a couple of cars together over on the back stretch. Jerry Foyt and the number 15 machine, a couple of rookies, Todd Oliver, and that's the reason you see the car slowing down on the racetrack.
And it looks like Lampman was involved again, too, or maybe he was just taking evasive action. Just as this yellow flag came out, we were beginning to get into the Wins Halfway Challenge. The winner, by the way, of this week's Wins Halfway Hot Shot Challenge is a deal as we look at Dennis Lampman, who is making this day longer, not that it's already long enough. Tim Steele, for winning this week's Hot Shot Halfway Challenge, wins $500 from Wins Oil for leading at the halfway point of today's race. Boy, lots of confusion. This is not what you'd call your typical race. We just get to the halfway point and the yellow comes back out. We try to award the wins money and the yellow comes out. And we have Tim Steele and Todd Forbes and Jeff Neal have dominated this race for the last 20 or 30 laps. John Benson looked like he was going to run away with this race. He was gone. Seneca has not had a smooth race. Eddie has not had a smooth race. Nor has Scott Hansen. This is like Indianapolis all over again. This is just not normal. It's almost goes out there.
You know, we talked about the patience of the officials, but you've got to wonder about the drivers. It's tough for you and I to get back in the groove once you've been sitting for a couple of hours. You know, you kind of get, but these drivers have to have stiff muscles. It's hard to get mentally re-psyched to go racing once again. I think that's part of what may be happening out there. And it is still very damp. It's still very humid. As you can see, where Todd Oliver's car now sits on pit road, that K&K Oldsmobile, water all through that pit area. And we've seen, Larry, a couple of cars almost spin on pit road.
Well, things are being screened very carefully right now. The Corvette pace car, Cayuga Speedway, has pulled to the track. The green flag's out again, and we resume race speeds on lap number 111. Several cars are wearing the battle scars of this heated competition on this 5/8 of a mile oval. Throughout the pack, Mike Eddy continues to move up. You're looking at 1, 2, and 3. Again, it's Tim Steele leading, and there is the fight for 7th place.
Mike Eddy seems to have appropriated that position as he goes to the low side of Gary St.Amant, and now Jeff Neal is challenging Todd Forbes for 2nd position. Jeff Neal in car number 5 previously had Harold Fair Jr. as a crew chief. Things have been changed there. He's now got Chip Caputo, former chief, to Bob Seneca, as Mike Eddy continues his charge to the front.
Yeah, Mike has had a reasonably quiet weekend, but he's never been what you'd call out of the hunt. And people are saying, well, where is Mike Eddy? Well, he's finished 2nd twice already this year. And that's certainly not anything to make light of, because 2nd place is just a whisper away from 1st place, needless to say. And the way Benson's been going this year, you got to say, hey, I guess Eddy has been the 2nd best performer so far.
Well, it would appear that way. And now he's got to have renewed confidence with the early departure of Johnny Benson. And that's got to have exhilarated a lot of drivers. Not that they want to see Benson out, but they know it gives them a chance to close up in that points battle.
Everybody has a much greater chance because the red and white Berger Chevrolet is no longer in this contest. It has been so dominant in practice and qualifying in the last 2 races, people were beginning to wonder. Well, they found a way to stop him, but it wasn't what you'd call polite, but it was just a racing incident.
Another factor, Larry, that we really haven't talked about much. In a way, this is the first race of the season because it's the first race in the Players Limited Cup. An extra $100,000 up for grabs in this 5-race Canadian Series. Over $20,000 to the highest point getter in those 5 races, and they've got to be thinking about that as well.
And in the year of the Olympics, it makes this series one of the most important, if not the most important, North American stock car racing series. These 5 races in Canada will be on 3 different tracks, including a road course. The first for the American Speed Association, making this a most intriguing season. And for the Players Limited people, really something to kind of crow about in 1992.
A lot of the ASA competitors fly in and out of the Mount Hope Airport just outside Hamilton. Todd Forbes carrying an extra sponsor this weekend on the hood of the car that Glanford in near the airport. And Jay Sauter now goes after the number 5 machine of Jeff Neal for 3rd position. I think he's got it. Let's see. Neal hangs tough on the outside, but Sauter just blows him away as they come off turn 2 and brings Tom Harrington right with him. And here comes Mike Eddy as well. Neal's in trouble, Larry, up high.
Yeah, if there were a draft, he's out of it. Jeff Neal is really looking for a place to hide that Grand Prix, hopefully right down on the curb, but he's not going to get there until the train, 3 cars strong, passes by. And
car number 91 appears to be handling as well on the bottom of the racetrack as anyone. Tom Harrington carrying our on-car, not in-car camera in car number 91. And look at him. He's staying right with Jay Sauter. Harrington running in 4th position and not giving any ground to either Sauter in front nor Mike Eddy behind.
We are having a problem with the in-car camera. That's why we have not gone to it. We mentioned several times the ceiling has been very low, and of course the use of the in-car camera with this particular technology is predicated on helicopter. And with all the confusions of the day, I'm sure that contributed to that. But back to this race, Mike Eddy, that is the one constant. That is the one piece of normalcy, I think, in this race, is Eddy is once again apparently rising to the top.
He is, and as he moves up, you can see Jeff Neal just out of the screen is falling backwards in car number 5. Look at Eddy. He's beginning to pressure Harrington. Harrington says, wait a minute, I need a little distance. I'm going to get Sauter. He's giving it all he's got.
Tom Harrington is having just a terrific season, and boy, this is proof that he is not backing into it. That man has improved his lot in life as a race driver dramatically in the 1992 season, and he attributes most of it to just having very good equipment. But Harrington has had 3 top 12 finishes and twice has qualified inside the top 5, and boy, he is a legitimate top 5 contender again today.
He is, and when you realize in 100 career ASA starts, and that spans some approximately 10 years of part-time racing, he has never in his career had a finish in the top 5. That very definitely may change this afternoon.
You know, Sauter got underneath him a few laps ago, right after the resumption of racing following a caution flag, and I thought Jay was kind of turning up the wick and heading to the front, but now Tom seems to have picked up speed, and both Harrington and Eddy appear to be quicker than Jay Sauter.
But you notice Mike Eddy really isn't putting any serious pressure on Tom Harrington. So I think Harrington is every bit as strong as Mike is.
The leaders have now entered into a period of this race where they're going to be in constant traffic. They're going to the high side of some of the people running in the back of the pack right now, and this is going to be something for them to contend with. Plus, it is going to really play into the hands of this trio, Sauter, Harrington, and Eddy, as they try to track down the first 2 cars.
They're the only 3 that you see on the screen right now, but they're only about 8 or 10 car lengths behind the front-running pair, which continues to be Tim Steele in car number 85 and 07 of Todd Forbes.
There are the leaders, and there is the second pack of cars. Again, 3rd, 4th, and 5th. Jay Sauter looking for win number 1. Todd Forbes looking for win number 1. That black number 07, the Noah Yoder Ford machine from Bryan, Ohio. Bryan, Ohio, and a couple of other cities there on the extreme western edge of the state.
When Todd first came to ASA, he did a little bit of driving and turning some wrenches, and they put somebody else in the race car thinking maybe stock car racing just wasn't his bailiwick. But a couple of seasons under his belt now, and suddenly he becomes a serious contender for an ACDelco Challenge Series victory. Look at him. He's really turned up the heat, and he's giving Tim Steele all he wants.
Todd Forbes is currently ranked in 12th position. He is with in points, that is. And look at Forbes looking to the inside of Steele. He would definitely like to move by. Forbes is in 12th position in the points. There are only 12 points that separate 11th through 15th, and Todd Forbes is right in the middle of a points battle with Tom Jones, Dennis Lampman, Dennis Vogel, and Ken Stauffer. But today, it looks like he may be in a position to pick up a lot of extra points.
One of probably his 2 best performances of his ASA career to date. He sat on a pole at the end of the 1990 season at Jennerstown, led a lot of laps at Tri-City Speedway last year before settling a little bit back in the pack at the finish. But look at this now. Tim Steele is holding up the parade.
He definitely is, because Jay Sauter is closed in, as is that man, Mike Eddy. He's 5th. He is 4th. And there goes Forbes to the underneath. He does a body slammer almost. I see no black paint on Tim Steele, but a brand new race leader as Todd Forbes takes the Thunderbird to the point.
If you'd ever stand and talk to that guy for 2 minutes, you'd say he's not capable of that kind of aggression. He just keeps it all bottled up inside till he gets to the race car.
It looks like Tim Steele has lost the handle. I can't believe the horsepower is going away in that car, but it just won't stay down to the bottom of the racetrack like everybody else's is right now.
If I were to guess, I think he's got a tire maybe losing some air pressure. Now look at that car roll over on the right side. Look at that. He's got his hands full just keeping it pointed the right direction.
Boy, a move very similar to the one that took out Johnny Benson about, it seems like a week ago, 2 or 3 hours ago. As Forbes now leads, he goes to the high side of the Clark Oil car, driven by Terry Winnie, puts a lap on the former midget champion from the Midwest. And now into second place is Jay Sauter, the Wisconsin driver. The sibling one of 9, I believe, or 9 or 7, who knows. I guess after you get bought, stop counting. Yeah. And of course, Jim Sauter to the father. Jim Sauter, a long time, outstanding late model and stock car driver.
Well, there's some organizations where they talk about the man in black. We've got 3 men in black right now running 1, 2, 3. Todd Forbes out front in the Ford. Second position goes to Jay Sauter's Chevrolet, and in third, Mike Eddy's Pontiac.
And Tim Steele, by the way, has dropped back to fourth. Right now, conversation going on in the pits, and they're discussing whether or not to bring that car in. They'd love to see a yellow flag, of course. And Tim is still in fourth position with pretty good track space, so my guess is they're going to try and wait it out.
And by the way, I think I was a touch premature. Eddie's not third yet. He's still working on Harrington right there as they come down the backstretch.
Boy, old Tom is holding his own. I mean, we got to stop saying that this is a surprise because he does this week after week. It's expected now.
And we'd like to remind the race fans, you know, we're not casting aspersions at his previous racing efforts, but he ran for a lot of seasons with a very old race car. In fact, in 1991, he showed up at every event with an 8-year-old ASA machine. These, of course, every one of them brand new from the ground up.
We now understand more reports on the racing radio that Tim Steele believes he has a right front going down, losing some air, and they're hoping against hope that they get a yellow flag. And Tim way out of shape again in corner number 2, and there is third and fourth place, Tom Harrington and Mike Eddy. 137 laps are now gone by the boards. That means this race is official, but we're hoping to go 200. This International American Speed Association stock car season continues. Today we're running, of course, not too far from Hamilton, Ontario. The next TV race on the national network is Sunday, the 28th of June at 3 p.m. The Western Auto 300 from the high banks, the exciting high banks of Odessa, Missouri. That's Sunday at 3 p.m., the 28th of June. We still have, incidentally, 5 more television races to go. We've got that Players Limited Challenge, and so lots of good ASA racing action.
And the next 2 ASA events coming up, the Michigan Swing, a Friday night, Saturday night doubleheader, Friday night the 19th, in 2 weeks, the Tri-City 200 from Auburn, Michigan, and then the Berlin 200, one of the most historic tracks for history as far as ASA drivers are concerned. That's Benson's home track, Seneker's home track, Tim Steele's home track, and they're all looking forward to going back for that 2-race Michigan Swing.
And a racetrack that's not very dissimilar from this one. This racetrack visually looks a lot like the Indianapolis Raceway Park in Indianapolis, but the drivers tell me, no, it's not really right. The track drives entirely differently. Ironically enough, many of them were telling me that it drives a lot like Columbus Motor Speedway in Columbus. Let's take a look at the top 10 with 175 laps down, just 25 to go. Did this yellow help Gary St.Amant? You bet. Bob Seneker is in second. Mike Eddy now moves up to third. Scott Hansen is fourth, and Tony Raines currently ranked in fifth position. Tim Steele still having a good race, but now back to sixth. Steve Holzhausen, he's been in seventh all day long. Ken Stauffer, Tom Harrington, and Jay Sauter. He looked like he was destined for a better finish than the bottom 5 of the top 10.
It's not over yet. Don't count him out. We have 3 other cars still remaining on the lead lap. Jeff Neal's car number 5 runs 11th. The 33 of rookie Brad Loney in the 12th position.
Again.
And Jerry Foyt running in 13th position. And he's impressed everyone, I think. Not only how quickly he's adjusted to these race cars, but he just has a tremendously positive attitude.
How about Loney now? He's had an 11th, 14th, and 12th. And speaking about Jerry Foyt, you know what? There's blue on there and some yellow. I'm going to say that may be Foyt. and he's got damage to the right front, so he may well be the culprit. Getting back to the Loney situation, 11th, 14th, and 12th in 3 previous races. The guy told us before the race began today and in talking to him yesterday, well, my goal is to stay out there, stay out of trouble, and finish these races. He's really accomplishing it.
And when you do that, you learn, and you learn a lot. Dennis Vogel, who's had the moniker ASA's Mr. Consistency, may be very shortly in jeopardy of losing that title.
Absolutely.
The way Maloney's been running.
Gary St.Amant, leading this race, had some very interesting comments to you and me yesterday also about driving this track.
He sure did it, and I wish I could show it visually because he used his hands to demonstrate. He was talking to one of the rookie drivers. I believe it was Leighton Reese, and he said, smooth is the key here. You don't drive in hard and stand on the brakes and then stand hard on the throttle coming back out of the corners. You smooth in and smooth out, and Gary St.Amant's going to try to be smooth for the next 21 laps and hope that he can hold off Seneca and Eddie.
And Rob, we were talking during the break. My assessment of this is, given the miserable season that Gary St.Amant has had, it's good running out of gas.
Absolutely. He will definitely be the benefactor of that extended caution period most recently, as we've got a caution on the backstretch, but that will not come into play for these leaders. Look at Mike Eddy. He's dispatched with the lap traffic, and he'll now make it a three-car battle.
Well, this is going to be a test, and look at there. St.Amant opens up a little bit of distance as Eddie closes on Seneca. I was about to say this is going to be quite a test to the steely nerves of Gary St.Amant. He's not been running up front all that often this year. Does he still have it? Has he lost it? I think we're getting the answer right now. It's still there.
I'm sure Gary, if he's checking his mirrors at all, he's saying, come on, guys, fight it out, fight it out. Give me a little breathing room. And they will fight it out. There's no doubt about it.
It is now 3 sticks of dynamite, and the fuse is only 20 laps long. 19 now. Eddie moving in. Seneca does not look like he has the tools to work with Gary St.Amant.
Look at Mike Eddy. He's changed his line. That time he tried the high side after unsuccessfully going to the bottom of the racetrack. He can't jeopardize going too low with his extremely wet infield area, Larry. I've seen these guys run it into the grass before. Eddie won't do that now.
Seneca is loose. The setup of that car has gone away just a little bit, and he cannot put it where he wants it. He may be helping Gary St.Amant win this race.
There's no doubt he's helping him. The winning the race part yet to be decided.
That's in the hands of God.
Gary has got to be absolutely loving this. And look at Seneca that time. He was almost completely sideways coming off turn number 4 just with his hands full of Mike Eddy. Again, Eddie in turn 1 looks up high.
Boy, if you've tuned in looking for something else, the reason why the race is still on because it was rain delayed this afternoon, and you may have tuned in looking for other programming. A yellow flag, we have a spin. It's Jerry Foyt in corner number 1. St.Amant gets another break. Once more, a fuel-saving yellow flag comes up with 16 laps to go. This race could be falling into Gary St.Amant's hands.
Absolutely another break for Gary St.Amant, because if he's again able to get a good jump on the restart, he seems to get great restarts, Larry, and Seneca does not. I think you're going to see when we do go green that Eddie will make his move as soon as we get back to green front.
And for Foyt, by the way, even if the tire doesn't appear to be rubbing, which is quite unusual, even though he now will have to drop back to the tail of this field, it's not going to hurt him because he was the last car in the lead lap anyway, so he did not lose his lap on that incident. Let's take a look here and see if we can tell what happened, but Jerry may not be losing out. Oh, he gets inside.
Dave Anspaugh's car number 37.
Oh,
whoa, what a move by Brad Loney.
Was that Loney? Yes.
Yeah.
Gracious.
Amazing. Well, and if Gary St.Amant hangs on for the win, I would strongly suggest that he go to the Jerry Foyt pit and say, may I take you to dinner, young man?
And I was also going to say to the people who perhaps have tuned in for other programming, they need to stay here, because if Gary St.Amant visits Victory Lane, it's going to be human drama.
We're green with less than 15 laps to go. The battle is for 6th position. It's rookie Steve Holtzhausen. You can see him down low. Tony Raines up high. We hate to go away from the lead, but this is the side-by-side racing for position. Look at Raines fight for all he's worth on the outside, but Holtzhausen has the faster line at Cayuga.
Steve Holtzhausen really putting a hammerlock on the Rookie of the Year chase. He's currently the highest ranked rookie, and he's bidding to become the highest finishing rookie again today. Steve Holtzhausen with another strong performance as we watch this hotly contested battle for 6th position. Just a reminder, with 188 laps down, 12 to go, up front, it's St.Amant, Seneca, Eddie, the number...
You're all right. You're just too excited.
I'm thinking about number 78 from a year ago, and it's now number 53.
That's
Scott
right, Scott
Hansen.
Hansen.
Yes.
And
running in 5th place is, of course, Tim Steele. But up front, Gary St.Amant. Wow, he is really opening up some eyes.
Dave Anspaugh apparently has had an engine let go. It looks like we'll stay green as he gets it quickly off. Now we continue to watch that battle. It's calm for the moment. Back up front, here's Gary St.Amant and Mike Eddy and Bob Seneca almost up into the wall. St.Amant, I think, is running out of fuel. He stopped on lap 17.
Something is in corner number 4, to be sure.
Absolutely.
Something is on corner 4 because several cars have slid around that turn, and so another yellow flag comes out. I'll repeat it again. Another fuel-saving yellow flag.
Now let's think about this for a minute. These drivers have told me repeatedly that about 100 miles is the limit for fuel. Gary St.Amant stopped on lap 17. He will have gone 183 laps of racing. Plus, who knows, Larry, another 15 or 20 laps under caution on the restart here. He will have gone probably 115 miles on his fuel. Wow. I didn't think that could be done. Well, I don't know who the engine builder is, but that guy deserves a medal if he can go the distance.
The Corvette pace car once again has pulled to the front of the field. The Corvette pace car has led more laps here at Cayuga than any other car driver combination today. And Gary St.Amant is just barely touching that throttle, using as little fuel as he possibly can as he motors around very carefully this 5/8 mile track. Gary St.Amant, who has shown some very strong horsepower here in the latter stages, continues to hold back the veterans Bob Seneca and Mike Eddy. 192 laps click off this time by.
8 laps to go, and remember, the last 5 laps must be run under green flag conditions. Of the 3 front runners, the guy with the freshest right side tires, and that could determine the outcome. Mike Eddy's car number 88.
Boy, this could be very, very exciting. Scott Hansen holds on to 4th. Tim Steele is 5th. Holzhausen 6th. Tony Raines is 7th. Tom Harrington is in 8th position. Jay Sauter 9th. And Jeff Niels in 10th. All those cars, of course, on the lead lap. Ken Stouffer, by the way, is right behind them in 11th position. He, too, on the lead lap.
Yeah, he's 11th. I'm not sure who else. Brad Loney is 12th on the lead lap. Jerry Foyt 13th. We have 13 cars still remaining on the same lap with the front runner, Gary St.Amant. He's just got to be praying for all he's worth right now.
He went by the truck there that's putting the quick dry down. I saw his hand out the left side of the car saying, slow down, slow down. Just kidding. But he would have if he thought he could have got away with it.
He's got a new fan this weekend. I kind of wonder why Design Tech, the guy that does graphics for a lot of these race cars, is on that car. Well, I happen to find out that Gary has a new love interest in his life. And I hope he's not embarrassed. But it's the sister of the guy that's sponsoring the race car this weekend.
That's about right. This is about soap opera time. Yes,
right.
I mean, it seems like we've been here all weekend long, and it seems like Tuesday.
Well, the track vehicle has cleared on the backstretch, so we should be just a lap or 2 away from going green. The one flag, the single furled green flag, is the indication that we'll go green the next time. We have completed this time by 194. Look at St.Amant, okay? Is he sloshing around that last ounce or 2 of fuel, or is he warming up the Goodyear Eagles? I think it's probably just a little bit of both, praying to make it to the end.
It's going to be very interesting because no matter what happens to Gary St.Amant here in the final 6 laps, it's still a great story. I think there is not a person on these grounds, save for maybe 2, Seneca and Eddy, who are hoping that fuel can go the distance. Everybody wants to see Gary St.Amant hold on. And boy, he has driven a terrific race these final 50 laps.
And there were those that doubted, including myself 3 or 4 years ago, that this man would ever be a winner in ASA. Just too nice a guy, we said. He doesn't have the killer instinct. Well, he has disproven that, and he's trying to do it here again this afternoon. Look at Seneca and Eddy continuing to battle, and this is playing right into the hands of Gary St.Amant. Look at him down in the dirt coming off turn number 4. He does not want to be denied the victory.
I don't expect that there was one person who was on these grounds this weekend, including himself. Maybe his dad thought he could win, but I doubt that there was one person who thought he could win.
Well, he's one of the few people that can maintain a smile and a friendly attitude despite adversity. And, you know, good things come to those who wait, they say, and it just may be coming to Gary St.Amant.
Hey, we all waited today, didn't we?
It's hard. You know, you're not supposed to play favorites. We're supposed to be totally objective, but, man, you got to hope that this kid can hang on just a couple more laps.
Lap 198 is the count the next time by. St.Amant as straight as an arrow off of corner number 4. Seneca still runs second. Eddie is third. Running in fourth position is Hansen, and fifth is Tim Steele. That has remained constant now for about 25 green flag laps. The white flag is coming up this time around. The man from Columbus, Ohio, has more than a good shot at this race. Eddie looks to the inside of Seneca. He tries to make a bid for the runner-up position. Gary St.Amant is praying, coaxing that car around corner number 2, heads for the back straightaway, stays right in the groove. He's got distance between himself and Bob Seneca. Gary St.Amant looks like he's going to pull it off. Do miracles happen? As Al Michaels once said, yes, miracles can happen, and Gary St.Amant has picked up a most surprising victory here at Cayuga, Canada.
What a fantastic victory for Gary St.Amant, as we've had a hard crash right at the finish of this race on the backstretch involving at least 2 cars. Donnie Zwiefel was involved. Dennis Vogel has also come to rest on the backstretch. But right now, look at the jubilant Gary St.Amant waving that fist of victory, and he's at racing speed saying, hey, I got enough gas. Let's keep running another 50 laps.
Just showing off. Remarkable. Gary St.Amant, the man who went winless in 1991 after a couple really stirring victories in previous seasons, has picked up the checkered flag here at Cayuga, Canada. Second place went to Bob Seneca, but it was a challenging second place because Mike Eddy was breathing right down his tailpipes, and I'm sure these 2 veterans are going to have a couple of very complimentary things to say to Gary St.Amant when he comes to a stop here in Victory Lane.
Well, normally when you see Seneca and Eddy battling at any racetrack, it's for the victory. Not this afternoon. It was for maybe the pride and a few bucks and some points in the Players Limited Cup and the points in the ACDelco Challenge Series, but all of the points and all of those things right now, the only thing that matters to Gary St.Amant, believe me, he's not thinking money right now, at least not for the next 15 minutes, right?
We told you that if you don't know about ASA racing, to stay tuned, because Victory Lane with Gary St.Amant, it's something to behold, Ralph. It's all yours.
Oh, Gary St.Amant is just wiping off and getting set to get over here and come out and talk to us. His crew all down here chatting with him. Gary, you have got to be one of the lightest yet heaviest on your right foot I've ever seen.
Oh yeah, Ralph, I'll tell you what, those last 50 laps, I knew it was going to be a tough one. You know, I seen Bob coming. You got Bob back there, and I think Mike actually helped me out because I think he might have slowed Bob down just a little bit. And I'll tell you what, can't say enough about the crew. You know, I just want to thank St.Amant Motorsports, Hinkernell and Williams for building us a good, strong engine, Penske shocks. I'll tell you what, the list goes on, but I'm really happy, Ralph.
We talk a lot about what winning a race means to a driver. I know this means a lot to you, but for some more special reasons, I think.
I'll tell you what, our team, you know, we don't have a sponsor, no major sponsor, and for us to win a race like this, be Bob Seneca or Mike Eddy, you know, really, you know, I was thinking after today, you know, if we had a bad race today, you know, we might not be at the next race, and boy, I'll tell you what, we'll definitely be back to the next one.
Gary St.Amant, probably the only guy here, Larry, who was not upset at the fact that it took us so long to get to the finish today.
Cheers for Columbus, Ohio, the home of Ohio State University. Gary and his dad have a shop on the north side of town, and a very, very jubilant Gary St.Amant mounts the race car and begins to enjoy the spoils of victory. A man who 3 times in 1991 won a pole, and there he is getting the congratulations of Glenn Allen Sr., somebody that he has raced against for many, many years and raced against the racing team. And this is a victory that many, many people and several teams in the American Speed Association can share. Well, you cannot call Gary St.Amant an unusual winner in this most unusual day, but he was certainly a surprise winner. Coming out ahead of the 2 veterans, Bob Seneca and Mike Eddy. Scott Hansen, the Wisconsin driver, persevered to 4th position. He too had a long day, and Tim Steele, who looked like a winner for some time today, finishes in 5th position. 6th through 10th is Steve Holtzhausen, Tom Harrington, Tony Raines, Jeff Neal, Kent Stuffer. Of course, all those are unofficial, pending checking of the tapes following tonight. Well, Bob Seneca was in second position, and he finished behind what for him must have been an unusual scene, Ralph, behind a bright red number 7.
Yeah, it was a little unusual for Bob Seneca to see Gary St.Amant in front of him, I guess, at the finish line. But, Bob, in some ways, it looks like the battle between you and Mike Eddy might have allowed Gary to get to that finish line first.
Well, that was part of it, but this was kind of a messed up day for everybody. The rain and the red and the yellows and the cautions at the end there didn't help me any. My car runs better with a lot of green laps under it. And at the end there, I was just hanging on, hoping Mike couldn't give me a bump to get by, and Gary did a heck of a job.
At that point, were you concerned more about trying to set Gary up or just keep Mike behind you?
Oh, Mike wasn't ruining my groove. I was still running where I wanted to run, but you never forget about Mike when he's back there. But I wasn't about to pass Gary anymore without just a few laps to go because, like I say, I need a lot of green laps to get my car going, and I was just hanging on at the end.
And most importantly, Larry, Bob Seneca picks up quite a hefty amount of points for finishing second today.
A lot of points, and he's used to doing that.
Thanks,
Johnny Benson Jr., he slips down a little bit. Another interesting aspect about the top four.
We've talked about parity among the drivers and parity among these 1992 cars. How about this for parity among the makes? The winner in a Chevrolet, second place car number 84 to Bob Seneca in a Ford, the third place machine of Mike Eddy, a Pontiac, and coming home fourth today in car number 53, Scott Hansen in an Oldsmobile. And almost fittingly, Larry, did you notice that the sun came out for the first time all day as Gary St.Amant climbed out of the race car?
Well, speaking about points, Scott Hansen had a good finish today, third in points, and the man who came into today ranked fourth in points, finished third today, and number 88 is with Ralph.
Well, that's exactly what he needed to do, Mike Eddy. You picked up quite a few points finishing third today. You certainly seem to have one of, if not the fastest car on the racetrack there at the end, but Bob Seneca kind of got in the way of you getting a good shot at Gary St.Amant.
Yeah, there at the end, Bob's pretty hard to get around, you know. It was getting down to the nitty-gritty, and I was a little faster, but his car was getting pretty wide, so it was hard to get around it.
It seemed like the old veterans, though, were able to use up more of the racetrack. There were even a couple of times where you even nipped the grass a little bit. The racetrack didn't go away too bad for you today.
No, for all the rain we had today, the track stayed in pretty good shape. This place is known for getting slippery, but as much rain we had today, the track stayed pretty good. Everything went pretty good. That red flag in the middle helped us because we got to make some changes on the car, which we're pretty happy because it was pretty fast at the end. We just should have started out that way.
Well, I think most importantly, Larry, for people such as Mike Eddy and Bob Seneca and the rest of the crew in the top group of the point standings, the fact that Johnny Benson dropped out and that they finished up high is going to make a big difference as we go to the next one.
Yeah, Tom Harrington, who was in fifth in points, he also had another top 10. Here's the race summary. Gary St.Amant, of course, winning this. There were 5 lead changes among 6 drivers, 10 cautions for 89 laps. Most unusual race in that aspect. Almost 50% of the race laps, but a lot of that was because of weather. And 19 cars were running at the end of the 200-lap, basically sprint race for American Speed Association stock cars.
Well, a tremendous day for the St.Amant family. As Gary said, I wasn't going to say it, but, you know, I had heard rumblings that they may be done if they didn't have a good finish here at Cayuga, and this gives them brand new life heading to the Michigan swing.
Yeah, a race like today, I think, gives a lot of people a new hope, too. We'll get back to that in a second. Again, here's the rundown of the unofficial results one more time. St.Amant, Seneca, Eddy, Hansen, and Steele. You know, for Tim, perhaps a little bit of a disappointment because I'm sure that he and his dad felt like they had a win. Holtzhausen, Harrington, Raines, Neal, and Ken Stauffer, 11th through 15th. Brad Loney, there again. Jerry Foyt, as you pointed out, held on. Sauter slips to 13th in the end, and Leighton Reese, after having a very rocky race, had a very strong performance the second half, and he comes home in 14th. Terry Winnie in 15th.
In Jay Sauter's defense, he was nearly caught up in a last lap crash on the backstretch, and he had to get out of the throttle, relegated him to a 13th place finish. I believe he was running 9th or 10th before they took the white flag.
Rob, I began to say that a race like today gives a lot of people new hope. Not that Gary St.Amant is, as I mentioned, a surprise winner, but for people like Raines and Sauter, they got to think, geez, we really do have a chance.
Coming up next on TNN, ASA action, the Western Auto 300, June 28th, 3 p.m. from Odessa, Missouri. The Players Limited 400 from Calgary, July the 5th, and the Track Auto 200 from the Milwaukee Mile on the 12th of July. 2 more events in the Canadian Cup, the Players Limited Cup, Players Limited 300, and the Players 500.
Well, it has seemed like the 24 hours of Cayuga, but it's only lasted an afternoon. But it was a great afternoon for Gary St.Amant, who comes home the winner here in Canada. Enough to propel this team both financially and emotionally, perhaps more important, on to the next race and the rest of the season. Gary St.Amant wins in Canada as the American Speed Association, at the invitation of the Players Limited people, visit Cayuga. We'll be back.
Truckin' USA next on TNN Sports Sunday. This is TNN, the Nashville Network, the #1 source for country music, entertainment, and information.